Today we're visiting with True Morgan, a longtime member of Hope United Methodist Church. She's going to tell us about her memories and some of the activities she's been involved in here at the church. True, tell us how you first heard about this community of Christians we call Hope United Methodist Church.
I first heard about it and saw the building because I was a employee of the church schools. My first would be that I donated to the 133, it's a 133 campaign out of Park Hill to get this church started.
All right.
It was called the 133, so I knew about it because, and you know, in Park Hill, we thought a church way out there in the sticks.
That's right. This was undeveloped at that
Oh,
time.
yes, it was, I mean, the Cherry Creek High School was there. And Bellevue would be there as far as the buildings are concerned, but nothing else. And this, Bellevue was a dirt road. Dayton definitely was a dirt road. So I knew about that there was going to be a church. Then I moved from Denver out to Aurora and in 78. And then that's when, because I helped raise two children, my sister's children, and I felt they needed to be going to church. And I thought that this was much closer than going to Park Hill. So I came
You
out here.
had been a member at Park Hill for several years,
Oh, 20, 25 years or so.
and this church was closer to your home in
Yes.
Aurora.
Yes.
Well, the records show that you were officially a member in March of 1980,
Okay.
but you may have come prior to that.
Yes, I did. I know in 78, 79, or at least for sure in 79, I was coming.
Well, in those days, the only building was what we now call the Schultz Fellowship Hall.
Right.
You remember that?
Yes.
And Al Brown and Victor Schultz were the pastors?
Yes.
Yeah, tell us what you remember about Al Brown.
A very interesting person. He and Laura were very sincere, down to earth type of people. And his sermons were right down to the point. Victor Schultz was a very learned person. And I'll never forget him describing one Sunday in Fellowship Hall for our sanctuary, telling about a football game. And I wish we had a record of that because we could play that every year. Of course, have you ever
I don't
heard?
remember that, no.
Oh, I mean, he had it down to, I mean, and Red Miller was Red and Nancy Miller were members of the church.
And he was the coach of the Broncos.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. I should say that too.
Yes.
Nancy sang in the choir. Barbara there was the choir director. Victor Schultz was, I will have to say, the only pastor in all these times that ever been in my home. And he came with the idea, he was a visiting, what we call visitor pastor.
Yes, yes. We have that in common. I came here and signed in as a visitor. In the middle of the next week, Victor Schultz showed up at my doorstep.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he came to visit everybody.
And you know, that was what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And well, that was the truth.
Yeah. Well, tell us what it was like when we had worship services upstairs in what we now call the Fellowship Hall.
We sat on chairs, folding chairs. We had a beautiful red stained glass cross.
Yes.
I never understood that there was such quite a bit of discussion about that cross, but I thought it was beautiful.
I think it would light up at times, isn't that
is.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It had
Yes.
illumination in it.
The choir was always in the corner. We had a fire drill one Sunday, and we had to all leave the church. I remember that. I can't remember now what the issue was on that, but that was an orderly dismissal. Really don't have any other memories as far as the church is concerned. I mean, church service.
No.
I mean, oh, I did have mother come with me one time, and Al Brown was one who liked to smoke a pipe.
Yes, that's right.
And my mother, again, we have to think what era she grew up in Illinois, and in a small town. And Al Brown would always lead the service and go outside. He greeted his people outside the door
Yes.
with his pipe. And we got into the car, and my mother said, "Your pastor smokes a pipe."
But some people remember that the entire building was no smoking, except Pastor Brown's office, because he liked to smoke the pipe in his office.
So
And he would also go outside after church to do it out front.
it was a great smell. My dad always smoked a pipe. I was so, but that was how mother would remember Al Brown.
Yeah. Well, you remember Victor Schultz's wife, Ruth?
I remember her a little.
Yeah.
I don't remember her.
And you mentioned Laura Brown. You
Yes,
knew her.
Laura. She was a social worker.
Yep.
Or a therapist of some sort, I
Yes.
think, social worker. Very knowledgeable, very, I mean, and I was so sorry to hear they had both passed away.
Yes, they were good people.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the church continued to grow, and they went into a building campaign to expand the church and build a part. And Dr. Vickery, Richard Vickery, came as the pastor. Do you remember him?
Oh, yes, I
What-
remember him.
What do you remember about Dr. Vickery?
Very learned type of sermons. Very well thought out, very, I enjoyed them. Some people didn't, I know. I gained a great deal from Dr. Vickery. I remember one time, that was when I was kind of going through that this morning. I remember going to his home one time in the evening, and we were doing a project, and I have absolutely I was the only one, and that's when I met his two boys. And not at that time, I did not know that he was just raising two boys himself.
Mhm.
And I did not know that, and I had a hard time understanding when I did hear that his situation. Dr. Vickery has always remained a very, very close friend for me and the family. This is one time he came to, and I'll never know, when mother passed away, the morning that she had her heart attack and went to the hospital. My nephew came to get me from school. I was at Independence Elementary then. And when we got to the hospital, there was Dr. Vickery. I'll never know for sure how he knew that my mother had passed away.
But he was a
And
comfort to
he was
you.
right there, right there.
Well, we have that in common. My father passed away in Texas, and the day that I drove back, within 30 minutes of getting to my house, Dr. Vickery showed up. And I don't know how he knew I was coming back to town or anything, but it was a real blessing to me that he came and visited with me after that.
I'll never no. I mean, and I was saddened the day that he announced he would not be here.
Yeah.
I think many people were, some weren't. So,
Yeah. Well, you remember when we decided to build the big sanctuary and we're trying to raise money? Do you remember those
oh, yeah,
activities?
yeah.
What do you remember about those times?
A lot of money.
Yeah, it did seem like a lot of money, didn't it?
Many discussions, many, I should say, pros and cons. The size, what would be there, what wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
The kitchen was a very big issue.
Yes.
Uh,
Were you
We had,
involved?
at one time, well, I should have said something, when we had the fellowship hall, we had a small kitchen off this fellowship hall.
Some people have called it a closet.
Closet.
It's not much of a kitchen.
Ed Wilson's husband fixed that dishwasher, I don't know how many times. We'd go back to, again, to the fellowship hall, and Peggy Hanson and her kitchen, and the ability to put on a Thanksgiving dinner year after year. But in that kitchen and in the narthex,
Yeah.
450 people.
We've had some growing pains and that now we have a modern kitchen with plenty of room.
Yes. And again, I would have to say that I was surprised in the recent years, that the kitchen still is a thorn in some people's mind.
Yeah.
I have a hard time understanding that, because to me that kitchen has been of real value to this church.
I agree. Yes.
And but it also was a big discussion, and no office space, but we had a kitchen.
Well, after Dr. Vickery was here, Sam Day was appointed as a senior pastor. He had also been the district superintendent for this church and those in the area before he came here. Do you remember Sam?
Oh, yes.
Tell us what
definitely.
you remember about him.
Lots of different things. One is that he had a three-prong type of sermon. He had three statements. And I'll never forget the day that Barbara told us about that she was walking into church. Oh, we had a sign out near the sidewalk leading up to the church. And it was during Sam Day's time that that sign was taken down. And Barbara Day heard some ladies say they wanted to know what happened to the sign. And somebody told this other person, and Barbara heard this. Well, Pastor Day has three phrases
Yes.
to his sermon, and they won't fit on the board.
And Barbara Day was his wife, so
Yes.
she understood that.
Yes.
He would make three statements that didn't seem connected at all, like the lady shopping for groceries and a man mowing his lawn and a kid with an ice cream cone, and you think, where in the world is he going with this?
Yes, right.
But he had a real talent for bringing it all together. And
Well, through scripture too.
yes,
Through scripture, he really did. The other one what I remember about Sam, there's many different things I remember about Sam, because of the length of time he was here. How many years was he here?
from 1990 to 1995, so he was here 5 years.
5 years, okay. Well, one is that when Hill, Clayton Hill the third was killed.
Yes.
And I was in the office that day, and Clayton came in, and Sam met him, and I've never seen such an encompassing hug given to anybody, a man-to-man type of sincere, and
Wow.
it was quite, I was touched by that. And then Sam took Clayton into the office, but that's all. But I just remember that.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember about Sam and Barbara is that I was fortunate to be on a tour of England with
Oh, really?
Sam.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. No, not. I mean Israel and Palestine. It was Sam May's tour, and I remember him reading the Bible, and this is maybe something you might want to cut out on this. What would he be reading by the Galilee? The Beatitudes?
Maybe
From
the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. But I remember him standing there in the early morning, 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, sitting by the chimes ringing in the background from this little church. And he's reading the Beatitudes.
In the same area where those events took place.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
And so that was. The other one I do have is that Sam and I both have had cabins in Estes Park. And then I would see him at the YMCA, he and Barbara,
Yeah.
before they moved.
Yeah. And you remember Barbara being very involved in the activities of the
Oh,
church.
yes. UMW, she was very much involved with UMW and other activities too.
Yeah.
But
Well, Drew, you've been known around this church as the lady for United Methodist Women. Tell us about your involvement with UMW.
well, number one, I believe in United Methodist purpose, and that we're serving youth, children, youth, and women. It is also a part of the United Methodist Church discipline. We're now recognized as that in this church officially. At one time, we had 3 circles, daytime circles, and an evening circle called Priscilla Martha, what we called the PM circle. And I was basically involved with that all during the time I was working. And then when I retired, then I became a part of the daytime group. And I've been involved with in every aspect of the local unit as well as the conference. I mean, the district, Mile High Pikes Peak, which now Hope is part of the Mile High Metro
Right.
District, which will be a new challenge. 55 churches, 55 units. Will be much larger than the Mile High Pikes Peak. And then I've also been involved with the conference level. I support their programs, their spiritual retreats. I've gone to Estes Park. I've gone to all the district day apart spiritual retreats. There's some, let's see how many years have I been here?
39 plus. Yeah.
At least 30 years. I've also attended Western Conference jurisdiction meetings, as well as I've gone to 3 general conferences. So I really, it has been a very difficult situation of how this particular group of people, group of members, really believes in supporting local missions. And UNW is much larger than that.
Yes.
And so we are very, very active in the last 3 years with some very exciting projects. One is the human trafficking.
That really opened my eyes about the whole problem that I didn't realize was right here amongst us. I thought it was always somewhere else.
It's right here in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
DCC. But again, the fellowship that I gained, I feel I've been able to contribute to the church through United Methodist Women.
Certainly have. Tell us about some of the other projects that have reached out to children and youth that UMW has supported year after year.
UMCOR, with the UMCOR, all the different kits. We've done the health kits and school kits. We've also done the school supply kits, or school supplies project for various groups around. I mean, we've done it. We've sent it down to Warren Village. We've gone. This year we went to Mission Viejo with the Title I school with our project with them.
Oh.
We always supported the our youth mission trips. We've always done that.
They do the mitten tree and the socks.
Oh, well,
and
yes,
things?
yes. Oh, and the sock project. Good man.
Yeah.
Thank you. The sock project, we did this for the homeless. And we've always contributed to at one time we had the baskets, Thanksgiving baskets, Easter baskets, Christmas baskets. UMW always has had that. I've done work with those. We cooperated with other church projects, mission projects. We can pledge, which our money goes to into the district to do the conference, which is another. Leading out, I hadn't thought about our mission project.
Well, I know you've been involved in many year after year after year. That,
yes.
Primarily through the UM, through the church.
Yes, and we've helped. We bought, I don't know how many of the plates and the silverware and what have you for the kitchen.
Yeah.
And we were doing that too. We used to serve weddings, and funerals, memorial services. That was a fundraiser for us, and that has not worked out. I mean, which is okay because our members became older and we were able to continue with that. You may not want to put that in.
Well, after Sam Day was here, we had two co-pastors. Margaret Hankins was one of those, and Dr. John Lee was the other one. You remember when they came to serve here?
I remember when they came, yes.
And what do you remember about that time?
The sharing and the idea that Dr. Lee, John Lee, insisted on coming down to the choir room and offering a prayer before we went before the choir. Margaret did it some, but John was one that always came. And that was very meaningful for all of us.
Well, Margaret was a bit of a pioneer in that she was the first senior pastor here as a woman. Do you have any thoughts about her role in that regard?
Not really. I support her. She handled that very well. She knew how to. Well, she'd been district superintendent.
Yes.
being Margaret who she is, who she was, is what made it.
Um,
I mean, I can't really, I don't, it'd be interesting to hear some other, if there's some other comments from other people in the congregation
um,
about Margaret, as because, but I'm, as a woman and certainly was supporting her.
Yep.
And she supported UMW at that time, and she supported me. That was a very difficult time for me to, I was going through some real stressful situation in the school situation. And she was absolutely supportive all the way.
I think some people had concerns about sharing the pastor role, but Margaret and John made it work
Yes, they
because of
did.
the people that they were,
Yeah,
and it worked very well for this congregation.
yes,
Yeah.
I think they did.
Yeah.
I mean, our congregation grew at that time.
Yes.
I think that's when we went up with Sam Day, and I think there that period of time
Yes.
was when we went to 1,100, 1,200 people.
Yeah. It seemed to be booming at that time. We had a lot of activities and people here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Margaret also served with Steve Miller as a co-pastorship. Do you remember Steve?
Oh, yes, I remember Steve.
Tell us what you remember about him.
His stacks of paper on his desk.
Organized, unorganized, disorganized?
Well, he said to me one time, Prue, I mean, because I was looking for the charter for the United Methodist Women. It was during Steve's time, but when we had I was able to get a UMW Sunday. And most units have a UMW Sunday. And I was never able to get that, or I shouldn't say get it, but support, and get support from the church to do it. It was under Steve that we were able to do that.
I see.
And, but we were looking for the charter, what supposed to be. And he said, Prue, he said, I have no idea where it is, and I don't know where anything is. That was, he had, I mean, he was fabulous with the sermon
Yes,
and with people.
yes, he was a very good people person.
He really was. He was fabulous.
Yeah.
But he had some difficulty with organizing, which I think that happens.
Yes, that's part of our lives.
And I mean, I've gone through that with elementary principalships.
Sure. In September of that year, Steve Warren was appointed here. He had to move from the Western Slope, so there was an interim there that Russ Brown was here. But then in September, Steve Warren came.
Isn't that interesting? I do not remember.
You remember Steve Warren?
Yes, I remember Steve Warren.
What,
He
what do you
always
remember
said,
about him?
Bless you, bless you. He was very good about greeting you. I enjoyed Steve.
After Steve, Dr. Dale Beck was here for a year. Do you remember him?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What do you remember about Dale Beck?
Number one, that he came from Illinois, and we connected for some reason or other at that time. Found out he had a cabin at Estes, and he was within a road of where I had a cabin.
Is that right?
And so the Peggy and Dale and I have become very close friends. Again, he was one who came to, he's the only pastor that had ever come to the hospital, out of Hope, I should say, that has ever visited me in the hospital or
Is that right?
rehab.
No.
And he's spent several times with that. And very sincere. The one comment I'll make about what Peggy has a comment was that she was in this church and in the fellowship hall for several different Sundays. And Janet Burnett went up to her and spoke to her. And she said, "You are the first person that has spoken to me."
You're talking about Dale's wife.
Yes, Peggy.
Yes.
And that made a real impression. By the time Janet and I ride together, and Janet got in the car and she said, "You know what this pastor's wife just said to me?" And it was at that time that in our administrative council and what have you, we were trying to figure out how to welcome people, what have you.
Well, that's on all of us, not being very welcoming.
But that was, and Peggy, I've talked with Peggy about that. And she has said, "I meant it."
Yeah.
Or just that. And I remember Marilyn Barber saying how hard it was to get people to greet people because she saw all these clusters.
Yes,
People.
yes. Sometimes
Fellowship
we
hall.
pair off on our friends and don't
Yeah.
speak to the others.
And I do the same thing.
After Dale Beck was here, Reverend Don Bird was appointed as a senior pastor. You remember him?
Yes, I remember him.
Tell us about Don Bird.
I thought he was refreshing. Who wants to hear that word? What's it? Very organized. Had a mission. He was also at a time where we were going through the conference level with some serious situations, and I think he handled it very well.
Mhm.
I mean, he had excellent sermons, I thought. I was one that was involved with on all the committees that those vision meetings and that sort of thing. So
Yes,
I was
to try
involved
to
with that.
get us organized about what our purpose was and
Yes.
where we're trying to go.
And you know, he obviously had the job to do. I mean, he was listening very carefully to the bishop and following the bishop.
Yeah.
I mean, he was determined we were going to have the 5 discipleship. I should know those by heart.
Yes.
But anyway, the vision that we have now.
To identify what this church is about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And Reverend Claire McNulty Drews is our current pastor. You know Claire.
Yes, I do. She is refreshing. Again, you could use the word refreshing, but she really, again, I think she's been placed here for a purpose.
Yeah. And
she brings scripture along with a very interesting sermons.
I think so.
She is very open, supportive. Knows what she's had a lot of experience that I don't think we've even touched on.
No.
Do you think that?
I do. Yes. I like her energy and her enthusiasm.
Oh.
And I like her sermons. She
Yeah.
touches me with her words.
Yeah. She really made, and they're ones that you remember.
Yeah.
That's, you know, again, when you reflect back over all those years, I remember quotes from Dr. Vickery.
And other roles in this church. Can you tell us about some of those?
I have not served on the staff parish relations.
That's the only one you haven't been on?
I was on finance. I've always represented UFW as far as the administrative council, now church council.
Yes.
And that I would like to have share that, but I've not been able to get somebody who wants to come. I was on membership. What are some of the others?
Missions and outreach. And
Mission outreach, yes.
worship and other.
On the PDO, I was on the PDO 2 different times.
Yeah.
Represented. I was there. What are the others?
Adult education, youth, choir.
Well, choir.
Yeah.
I've been in the choir for years.
Yeah.
Through several different choir directors. Adult education, in that I don't remember being on the committee. Yes, I was with a pastor we don't have down is Al and Marilyn
Lesser.
Lesser.
Yeah. Al and Marilyn Lesser were both here. Marilyn was on the staff as an associate pastor.
Okay.
And worked quite extensively with education. You remember
Yes,
Marilyn?
right.
Yeah.
Is Al still living?
Yes, my understanding is Marilyn passed away.
Yes, I know that.
But my understanding is Al is still alive.
Yeah.
We also had Marla Cowers
Oh, yes.
in that role for one time. And Stephanie Price
Yes.
has been here as part of the staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Drew, we've talked about a lot of different things and activities here. Can you tell us what this church has meant to you over the last 39 plus years?
Friendship, support, missions, the worship. The different styles of worship have been very meaningful for me. I think that is a real plus in this church, because we aren't afraid to try new things. We're willing to let people try new things. Music.
Yes.
Music. The quality of music, the variety of music, the participation in music are all very, very meaningful. I would say I perhaps come to church because of music.
Me too. I feel blessed by the talent of music in this church.
It's so natural. It is so just fulfilling. The quality is unbelievable. And we continue to have it.
Yes.
And, without much reimbursement for the people who are doing it.
That's true. That's true. We talked a lot about the past years at Hope Church. What would you like to see Hope do in the coming 40 years?
We must reach out to the young. And I don't know what we once called them, unchurched. But we are not bringing in our young people. Although I would say the last 6 months we have. Millennials, so to speak. I don't like that word, but
yes, younger people,
younger
families, and couples. Yeah,
and how to reach them. I mean, we continually we talk about that in UMW. We talk about it in Journey to Prayer. We talked about the church council. But to get them involved and want to stay and to support the church.
Yeah.
Financially as well as spiritually.
Well, Drew, we've talked about a lot of your experiences here. Do we skip any special events or special people that you remember here at Hope that you'd like to talk about?
Not really, because no, I mean, I could talk about them, but they're just a part of the fabric.
Yeah.
They're a part of me. And why I want to be here and why I hope I contribute. And I appreciate the recognition that I've received through UMW.
Yes.
I mean, I feel that I'm valued, and I think that's all very important.
I agree. Thank you for you being a vital part of this community of faith. And thanks for sitting for this interview.
Thank you.